Peace, peace, mine ascension here. Peace to my 6 to 22 strand, 7 to 9 ether, you melanin, selenium base, black gods of this planet. It's been a long time, family. I already know. I'm in my new sanctuary, my new manifestation. I'm thankful and grateful and thankful forever and always, always and forever. Forever, favored forever. I owe this to my real followers, my real supporters, because I've been getting, where's the YouTube videos? When you bring the YouTube videos back? I did not want to do any new YouTube videos until I was in my new manifestation. I refused it. And this is the power of manifestation. Understand that it's already there. It's already on its way. Either it's already there and you already have it, or that it's already on its way. So I told myself I'm not going to do no new videos until I'm in my new sanctuary, my new abode, my new realm, my new manifestation. And here I am, y'all. Thankful and grateful and thankful forever and always, always and forever. I made a list of topics a long time ago to to make the intentions to stay consistent with my videos, because I know that I've been very inconsistent. I know I've been neglectful. For those of you who are real followers, who are real supporters, who want to see this content, who want to see these videos. So a long time ago, I made a list of different topics, but one of the first topics that I made a list of, or that was first on the list, was the title of Women's Liberation Through Male Imitation, or Female Liberation Through Male Imitation. Because as we should understand, there's a difference between a female and a woman, just like there's a difference between a woman and a queen, and there's a difference between a male and a man, just like there's a difference between a man and a king. You dig what I'm saying? So maybe I should get into that real quick. As we already know, anything could be a female of any species. You have female pig, you have female dog, you have female rat, you have female cat. Anything's a goddamn female. Your being a female is based on your design of your genitals, your anatomy, biology, so on and so forth. That is strictly dictating the design alone. A woman is a little bit different. A woman is the combination of that female design, but also with the intentions, the femininity, the energy, and the construct that creates that aspect of that natural nurturing, that natural creativity, that femininity that need to be seen, because all beauty needs to be seen, and beauty is the feminine. That even that sexuality and that sensuality, because you can be sexual without having sex, and you can be sensual without being touched. So those are things that we need to understand and we can't forget. But then that queen aspect, which is a little bit higher, is the qualities uniting essential earth nurturing. Understand the multiple qualities of a woman. Understand those qualities and creativities that you possess, and tapping into all of them and uniting them as one aspect, or as the source of your feminine power. And then making sure everything you do is essential, making sure it's closest to the source as you can get, closest to the earth, closest to your own nature, closest to your own feminine. You see what I'm saying? And then the last part is the nurturing aspect. Whatever you do, most of the time, and not all the time, because remember, we are not in a religion where everything is 100% and giving us the right to judge each other and giving us the right to condemn each other. Most of the time, what you do as a woman should be soothing, should be nurturing, should be graceful. Just like most of the time, what I do as a man should be analytical, should be logical, should be righteous to some extent, should be noble to some extent. Because we all going to have times where we're always going to have to be in our lower selves for different purposes. So nothing is 100%. And as y'all already know how Mind Ascension teaches, I get the fuck out of this humanness. My whole purpose as the teacher in this third dimensional realm is to get y'all out of the captivity of your humanity. Because it's our humanity that has caused many of the oppressions that we face as so-called people and black people in this goddamn so-called country or corporation and this third dimensional realm. This need to love every fucking body. This need to fucking treat everybody as you treat yourself and all this bullshit. Intelligence will tell you to defend yourself when you're being attacked. But that love bullshit will tell yourself to continue being attacked because you love them, or whatever dumb shit we want to use to justify bullshit. You dig? So let's get into it, which is a topic that's long overdue, which is a topic that I touch on little by little here and there when I do certain videos. But female liberation through male imitation. First and foremost, what is liberation? We associate liberation with freedom. We associate liberation with not being restrained or not being oppressed, being released, being free to do something, and so on and so forth. Now, when we look at the historical aspects and the factual aspects, let's deal with this. Let's deal with this alliance that our melanin dominant women seem to have adopted and seem to have achieved some form of osmosis with this pheomelanin dominant female, as we should understand what I'm saying right now. I'll be speaking a certain way only because I'm not gonna lie, YouTube has been trying so hard to, they've taken down videos that come from years ago. All of a sudden, a video I did 4 or 5 years ago is offensive and all this nonsense. So, unfortunately, in order to continue to interact and exchange with those of you who are on a certain frequency, I'm gonna have to speak a certain way. Now, this alliance and this adaptation that our melanin dominant women have adopted and built, or through osmosis, how would you say, became. Let's look at the historical facts. When did women, and I'm saying women in general, even though I don't mean it in general, I mean it the other way. When did women get the right to vote in this corporation we call America? In 1920, women got the right to vote. What type of women got the right to vote? Number one. Number two, when did another type of woman get the right to vote after a certain type of woman got the right to vote? 1965. So the melanin dominant woman wasn't even allowed the right to vote as a citizen until 1965, while the pheomelanin, or the recessive female, had the right to vote from 1920. That is a 45-year difference between what you want to call your sisterhood or your equality. That's something that we very much need to pay attention to, and we need to stop forgetting, or if we don't know, we need to educate ourselves upon, because this is factual history. This is not something made up. No man made this up and all this. Another thing I want to get to and talk about is, within any time of this corporation called America and the historical perspective of it, when exactly did the melanin dominant man have any power over the melanin dominant woman? When exactly did a black man stop a black woman from doing anything within this society, from going to work, for achieving a certain position, for receiving a certain form of education? When exactly was it the black man's responsibility to suppress the black woman in any way, shape, or form in this society and this corporation we call America? Can anybody name any time where black men had enough power to say, hey, you can't come to this institution because you're a woman? You can't come into this organization because you're a woman. You can't do this because you're a woman. Name me any point in time in American history where black men had that power over black women. Because remember, you're liberated now. But what exactly are you liberated from? Are you liberated from the oppression of your black man? Are you liberated from the abuse of your black man? What are you liberated from? Because historically and by facts, both the black man and black woman were oppressed at the same time through the same duration. And as a matter of fact, black men to this very day are immediately murdered and immediately destroyed and taken off this planet before the black woman is. Because the black woman was allowed to come into the master's house while the black man was destroyed and emasculated and effeminized and so on and so forth out in the field. These are historical facts. Okay, no matter how we feel, these are historical facts. So number one, your white sister, part of your feminist sisterhood, had the right to vote in this corporation and country that is ran by her sons, her husbands, her brothers since 1920. You did not receive that right until 1965. Number two, your black man has never oppressed you or suppressed you from doing anything in this corporation or country called America since the beginning of our emancipation in 1865. A black man has never stopped you from getting a job. A black man has never stopped you from achieving a certain education or position in this current society and corporation we want to call America. I'm speaking basic facts right now. Okay? Now, let's get to the main point of the title of this video. Female liberation through male imitation. That liberation that you fought so hard to achieve. What was the freedom that you gained through that liberation? To be more of a woman? To be more creative within your womanhood and your femininity? To tap into your intuitiveness and to tap in the powers of your psychic ability, to tap into your emotions, to be creative and create more art, to create more music. Because before you were liberated, you weren't allowed to be singers, right? Before you were liberated through the feminist movement, you weren't allowed to be artists, right? Before you were liberated through the feminist movement, you weren't allowed to be caretakers, right? So what exactly did the feminist movement combined with women's liberation achieve for you? What have you obtained? The ability to work like a man? The ability to have a job that men dominated, which is more laborious and takes more hours out of your day and out of your body and more energy from your feminine vessel? What exactly was the achievement? To work harder? So let me understand this. Women's liberation, which is synonymous with freedom, gave you the freedom to be more of a worker. Gave you the freedom to work 40 hours a week and be away from your children in your home. Gave you the freedom to work under a white person or a white man. Because who was you working for at the time you were going through this women's liberation, which began in the early 1960s, which really started 1930s, going into being funded during the 1950s and 1960s. And I hope y'all understand the historical aspects, which I'm not going to go into, with the Rockefeller administration, the funding of the Rockefeller administration for the feminist movement, people being, how would you say, hired as so-called agents, for lack of a better term, what's her name? Like Gloria Steinem and many other people, and the ones that came along, because we got to remember, feminism and liberation came in many waves. And then, of course, as they always do, they adopted black women, just like they adopted black men during civil rights movements, okay, to push and further solidify the agenda of this so-called liberation, of this so-called feminism and women's movement. And whose movement is it really? Because once again, I ask you, my black women, my melanin-dominated women who were queens of entire societies, who were leaders in entire countries and kingdoms, who were the first gods of Nile Valley civilization and the most ancient civilizations, going back to even before Europe was even in existence. But that land we call Europe, you were the goddess of that land as well. That had entire regions of the planet named after them, like Europa, who was a princess, a black princess, a Phoenician black princess that had a landmass named after her. So who exactly was suppressing you, and what was the women's movement about, and who were you fighting against? Whose fight did you adopt and begin to regurgitate the terms given to you by that adoption against your own son, against your own brother, against your own father, against your own husband? Might not feel good, but everything I'm saying is factual. And I challenge anybody to show me anything different from these last 100 years, because it's 2022 now. And remember, your white sister, because it's about sisterhood, right? It's about all women, right? Of all colors, right? So why was your white sister the one that had the right to vote 45 years before your ass was even acknowledged as a human being? But yet y'all are a sisterhood? It's about all women? Yeah. What has this liberation achieved for you as women today? Do you have freedom to be creative, or do you have to go to your 9 to 5? Did you double the tax bracket for this corporation's government? Have we achieved more two-family homes as a melanin-dominated black community? Or do we have more single homes than we had when the feminist movement started or the women's liberation started? Because when the women's liberation started, during the 50s and the 60s, in the black community, there was at least, at the minimum, and I'm being nice now, there was at least double the amount of two-family homes that there is today, or two-parent homes that there is today. Don't even get me talking about crime. Don't even get me talking about health or disease or any of that. I'm not even going to touch on that because all of these things are related during the era and the times that we were going through this adopted fight against each other based on an illusion of liberation given by another group of people who colonized you in the first place. Did you hear what I just said? Now let's go to my main point about this video. The female liberation through male imitation. Are you imitating your African queens? Are you imitating the black women from the civil rights days that came up with the men of Black Panthers who set up the food programs for their own children, who set up the daycare programs for children, while allowing the men to stand in front of Capitol buildings with rifles, risking their lives so their women can be mothers to children and raise the next generation instead of her dying with a rifle in her hand and having a child without a mother? What does your liberation mean to you? That you can drink like a man now? That you can work hard like a man now? That you can have sex like a man now, which, by the way, is absolutely impossible because your promiscuity has different results than a man's promiscuity. You have a higher potential of physical sexual abuse when you are promiscuous than a man does. You have a higher potential of not knowing who is the father of your child when you are promiscuous than a man does. You have the higher potential of contracting sexual diseases, which we all know, because if we do the numbers and the statistics of AIDS from the 80s up to today, it was women that had the highest next to the other side, which I'm not even going to mention the name because I don't want no justification to do anything to my video. So the potential of the side effects of your behavior imitating a man potentially causing more harm and destruction to your physical vessel as a woman is higher than it is in a man. Why do you think that is? Did some man sit down and create a woman? Did any man sit down and create the biology, the anatomical structure, and the neurological structure of a woman's body? No. Mother Nature did that. And Mother Nature did that to differentiate and create complementary aspects to create the differences that made us compatible in the first place. These are things that I do. These are things that you do. And doing these things separately within the mastery of our own designs creates a complementary aspect that sustains balance within our physical existence and within nature. The female lion don't act like the male lion. The male lion don't act like the female lion. And so on and so forth and so on and so forth. The male plant, some of y'all that are weed growers, the male plant, the female plant have different functions and yield different results. Now, if you would like to mutate, by all means, if you want to mutate, mutate. Great, awesome. But when you mutate and when you vary in your design and attract the opposite energy, please don't complain. Please don't complain. When you project masculine symbolism, behavior, attitudes, and temperaments, don't complain when you attract the opposite sex, or the opposite energy that gravitates to what you are projecting. Because that's a part of this design. Feminine and masculine are energies before they are physical genitals and physical sexes. So by all means, a physical male can project the feminine energy and therefore gravitate a masculine woman. A masculine woman can project the masculine energy and therefore gravitate a feminine man. But once you do that, understand what your behavior is going to magnetize and don't complain about it. You worked so hard from the adopting of white feminist rhetoric and white women's problems with their white men who them as white men were in charge of all women and all men in this society. And adopting that, you have also adopted the behavior and the mannerisms and the temperament of that woman that comes from a completely different environment, completely different cultural background, and a completely different form of abuse and suppression. So let's go into some history. We know for a fact that the ancient African societies and civilizations, such as Egypt, such as Ethiopia, such as the kingdoms of Songhai, such as the kingdoms of Mali, we know for a fact that when invaders crossed those lines and witnessed the culture within these societies, one of the most shocking things that they felt was how free their women were. If you want proof of that, read the writings and the stories of Herodotus, who they claim is the father of history, who traveled across all these lands and wrote down what he witnessed. And one of the things he wrote down that we need to constantly remind ourselves is how exact and similar the Ethiopian was to the Egyptian. One and the same. Woolly hair, dark skin. One and the same. That's what Herodotus wrote. Also recording the fact that going into these different civilizations, which were dominated by melanated people prior to colonialism, their women were the most freest on the planet. That's one thing they say about Egypt constantly, even white scholars, that Egypt was the most freest place to be a woman in any other civilization, from Greek to Roman to all that other shit, to Asian civilizations, to Islamic civilizations, all of that. So when exactly did your oppression start as a woman, as a black woman? And when exactly did the black man gain power over you to oppress you in the first place? It is an absolute fact that in the civilization of ancient Egypt, which is in Africa, and it's still there until they decide to magically move that imaginary line that they tend to move all the time, which is how they made America bigger and bigger, or creating the man-made canal, which you call the Suez, which separated the so-called Middle East, Middle North, Middle South, Middle West. Where are the rest of those? Okay, so there's only a Middle East. That separated that Middle East, which was Northeast Africa, from Africa itself. But we're not going to go in that. That's another subject. So when exactly did this need for liberation as a black woman to be liberated from the suppression of your black man? Because that's one thing I noticed that black feminists don't specify. They don't specify that the liberation that they feel they need is from white colonized oppressors. It's from white patriarchy. Let's talk about patriarchy real quick. This patriarchy that many feminists and many women claim is caused by man's oppression, man's abuse, his destruction of women. Egypt was a patriarchy society. Y'all forgot that? Egypt was a patriarchal society. All pharaohs were kings and men. And as a matter of fact, you were allowed to be a pharaoh if you were a female, only if you projected the masculine aspects and symbolism of a king. But there is no history of any man in Africa, pre-colonized, adopting the symbolism and aspects of a queen. Why is that? Because the female by nature is bisexual, because she is the only sex creating both sexes. The man is the lower self. The feminine is the higher self. She separates and negates herself to create the duality and the polarity of what we want to call gender. But that's a whole nother topic, and that's a whole nother video. When did your oppressions begin with black men to need to feel liberated from them? Because I don't hear black feminists specifying that the liberation is from white colonizing men. It's from white patriarchy. Because black patriarchy gave you the right to divorce. Black patriarchy gave you the right to have property. Black patriarchy gave you the right to your children. Black patriarchy gave you the right to be a king if you wanted to be a king. So what the fuck are y'all talking about? Another patriarchal civilization or tribe or whatever you like to call it is the Zulu nation. Zulu nation was patriarchy. And see, you know what's another crazy thing that I have to mention is there are very small pockets of patriarchal societies in Africa because Africa is dominated by a matriarchy. It is the woman that dictates the bloodline of the royalty, not the man. So who the fuck are y'all following? Who are you imitating? Who burned you at the stake for centuries? Who created torture devices to rip apart and damage your feminine body? Can anybody show me an African torture device? Can anybody show me an ancient torture device anywhere in the world outside of Europe? Type it in right now. Don't type in anything specific. Just type in ancient torture device. And tell me where all of them you see come from. And then tell me where all of them you see have to do with. Who has suppressed your sexuality? Black men? Black patriarchy? Because in the ancient patriarchy society, it's not looked at as a good thing to be a virgin. We didn't want you to be a virgin. In an ancient patriarchal society, you had the right to sleep with whoever you wanted to. The only time that you were limited in who you slept with is when you chose a man to marry. And then you had to abide by the laws of marriage to that man. Other than that, if you wanted to fuck a whole bunch of people, you could fuck a whole bunch of people. As a matter of fact, your sexuality was embraced as divine, which I've shown this on my Instagram, Mind Ascension Alchemy. Any of y'all that want to go back and look on my page and see the historical references from multiple places around the world. I go to the ancient Americas. I go into Asia. I go into Egypt and show you the systematic consistency of the praise, of the respect, of the deification of the so-called whore, or the sacred prostitute, or the holy whore, these are brand new modern terms adopted after we were colonized, because there was no word for whore. There was no word for slut. And these terms, which came from our colonizers, like the term cunt, the term whore, which comes from the goddess Hathor, which comes from the goddess Kunti, Kunti. They saw that we revered the woman to such an extent that we deified her and put her on a throne, that they took the names of those goddesses and made them derogatory. Made everything about her design, her sexuality, her sensuality, her creativity. They made it stupid or they made it shameful. So now as a woman, when you want to express the different sides of your right brain, when you want to express your creativity, when you want to express your imagination, you're called silly, you're called stupid, you're called an airhead. So now you have to imitate the left brain of a man to project this falsehood of logic, which you do not possess the same exact logic as a man, which now makes you look crazy. Because as you're having an inner battle with your right and your left brain, trying to project a masculine design, which you are not, you look insane. And then wondering why men are walking around calling you crazy. We never called our women crazy before we were colonized. We call you crazy now because you're imitating me while also being you. Which is why the term I like to use is hybrid. Because you all mixed up inside. You want to work hard, but then you want to be taken care of. You want to do everything by yourself, and then you wonder why nobody's helping you. You super strong, super independent, can do anything by yourself, and then wondering why you're not protected. You're the mother and the father, don't need a man, and then wondering where the fathers went. The contradictions come from your chaos. The contradictions come from your inner battles of trying to imitate a design that you're not built to imitate. while simultaneously the foundation of your nature is the feminine design. So you still feel the same way, even though you're pretending you don't. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't give a damn. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck what nobody think. I don't give a fuck what nobody say. If you don't give a fuck, why you still talking about it? If you don't give a fuck, why you still posting about it? See, people who truly don't give a fuck don't give anything any attention. If you look at the true man, the masculine man, masculine actions naturally, he don't have to tell you he don't give a fuck about nothing. His lack of attention and his behavior will show you that. He's not going to make 1,000 memes about something he don't care about. He's not going to argue on and on and on about something he don't care about. You win, you got it. See you later. Something you care about, you give attention to. Something you care about, you dwell into. And that dwelling aspect is a part of the feminine because the dwelling technically activates the magnetism. And magnetism is neutral. It don't give a fuck if you're thinking about good or bad. It's going to attract that shit to your ass. Which is why that order is put in place as the masculine design to bring alignment to the feminine chaos. Are y'all listening or y'all getting mad? I don't like him. I don't like how he talks. He thinks he knows everything. I'm not listening to this. He don't know what he's talking about. I challenge anybody, show me where I'm wrong. Don't just tell me how you feel. If you want to do that, set up a consultation and we'll talk about it. But if you feel that I'm wrong or I'm inaccurate on the history, because I'll go into Greek, I'll go into Roman, I'm going to all that shit. Y'all wasn't allowed nowhere. Women wasn't allowed to do nothing. But show me in an African society what women are not allowed to do. And you know, I say this a lot, and I know this is going to offend a lot of females that completely don't understand this because they're coming from a combination of left brain and feminist conditioned mind. But the feminine is one and synonymous with the child. She's the one that creates the child, gestates the child, gives birth to the child. Therefore, she is the first child, the first mother. And what I mean by that is she has the same character, behavior, temperament, needs, desires, emotions as the child. Because whatever I keep the child from doing, the child wants to do it even more. Whatever I show the child and what the child sees, the child desires to do what it's shown. A child can only desire and can only do what it knows is there, what it's shown is there. Don't tell me your child needs an iPad and they see your ass on an iPad. A child only knows what is shown. A child only knows what is taught. A child only knows what is given. Women never wanted to do certain things until they saw other women doing them, until they saw men doing them. Excuse me, let me not say that. Because in our ancient societies, women respected the fact that there were men jobs and there were women jobs, and they didn't want to do men jobs. They wanted to do women jobs. Yeah. Now, you see any fucking thing and you want to do that shit. You see 100 tattoos on some goddamn female species, and now you want 100 tattoos on your ass. When if I go back to the 90s and the 80s and the 70s, and y'all claiming tattoos been around forever and ever and ever, which they have been around forever and ever and ever for different purposes and different reasons and different regions and different cultures and different people. But we're not going to go into that. But you don't see none of that shit in the 80s, 70s, and 60s. You know why? Because women were focused on being women and being feminine. They weren't imitating another image and using that imitation to justify it by calling it liberation. So now, being promiscuous is liberating, but as soon as you end up becoming pregnant, now you need help. And now you need science created by a man to tell you who the father of your child is. After you irresponsibly became promiscuous, as if you have a penis and not a vagina and a uterus that gestates life for 9 months, which you cannot avoid like a man can. Design, energy, function, efficiency. How is it efficient for a woman to imitate a man? How is it efficient for a woman to work like a man? If we know through the feminine, peace is sustained on earth, why would I want my woman working as hard as me? If we know through the design of a woman, the stress that she's designed to endure is through childbirth alone, why would I want her to go through and accumulate stress in her body from hard labor? She sustains my peace. She sustains the balance. But if I create imbalance for her, if I create an environment made of hell for her, then where is the peace on earth for us? If she is on the battlefield getting her head chopped off next to my head, who nurtures and raises the next generations? Because in order for the next generation to feel balanced, they have to have nurturing and they have to have discipline. If I raise the next generation with only discipline, then I create a heartless and a soulless generation. If I create a generation with only nurturing, then I create a passive and submissive generation. The reason why Mother Nature created the design for two to create the one is to create the balance within the one. And yes, two can create two, two can create three, two can create four, yada, 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 yada. But you know exactly what the fuck I'm saying. So now you want to be on a battlefield with me, die with me with your dumb ass, while our baby is sitting somewhere alone, crying with nobody to nurture them. And so now that baby dies. Because you know children die of neglect. That's a real thing, by the way. I don't know if anybody understands that. What exactly is your liberation? What does liberation mean to you? The freedom to go out and get drunk? You know, when I look at the choices that women make today that they claim is based on their freedom as women and their liberation to be women, I honestly don't see anything besides a whole bunch of bad habits and a whole bunch of frivolous spending that makes white people even more wealthy. So you're free to go to the club and get pissy drunk. You're free to smoke like a fucking chimney like a nigga does. You're free to go fuck and have promiscuous sex and actually attract certain diseases, get pregnant, and I don't know who the father of your children is. You're free to go work hard in laborious jobs. You're free to reject a husband or free to reject a man that actually wants to create order in your life. I don't hear women talking about the freedom of being more creative. I don't hear women talking about the freedom of being more innovative. I don't hear women talking about the freedom of being more nurturing within their feminine nature and design. The only freedom I hear women talking about is chasing a bag, working hard, getting money, not needing nobody, of course, until you need them. Don't need nobody, don't need no man. Where were the men? I take care of myself. Why didn't you protect me? And then, one thing we forget is that the men that you are complaining about in 2000, 2010, 2020, 2022, this is just a fact, who has exclusively 80% raised majority of those men that have become the men that you complain about today? Who instilled the values into that man about what manhood is, about what respect for a woman is, about what the responsibilities of a man is? The deadbeat fathers? Because you know, you don't need a man. And remember, you're both the father and the mother. Don't forget that one. That's my favorite. So if you don't need a man and you're both the father and the mother, then that means the men of today in 2022, 2020, 2010 should be actually perfect because you've been raising them exclusively. Am I wrong in that assumption? What is liberation? The freedom to do the things that are against your design? That's like a parent telling a child not to act like the family dog. And then the child grows up and says, you're not going to suppress what I want to do. I want to act like a dog. Is that liberation? So your freedom to go from human to animal, that's liberation? Because going from female to male, the most degrading thing a woman can do in this point in time is imitate a man. Talk about sexual abuse, talk about men objectifying women, which is absolutely ridiculous, because every song, every image, every form of sexual objectifying is being controlled by women today. Your slut walking as liberation. Your whores as liberation. Your sex workers as liberation. Your wet ass pussy as liberation. And then it's men who are objectifying you. You talk about how no man can tell you what to do and no man can control you. But then when I mention your own sexual objectifying of the self, you tell me that's what men like. So I'm controlling how you objectify yourself? I thought it didn't matter what I liked. I thought it didn't matter what I think. So why are you justifying your sexual objectification of yourself by what men desire if it don't matter what men want? I'm just asking simple questions, because these are the things I hear when I ask women these things. You make all these videos, you walk around butt naked, you got shirts with your nipples out, and then you say a man sexually objectifies you. And then when I ask you, why are you projecting yourself as a sexual symbol, you justify it by telling me that's what men want. So basically you're saying I control you while saying that you're liberated from my control and I can't control you? The contradiction of feminine chaos. Because the feminine will always avoid and go around accountability. Why? Because the feminine is synonymous with the child. Look at your children. Why did you do that? Because you told me I couldn't do this, but you didn't tell me I couldn't do that. Why did you do that? Because you said blah, 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 and you didn't do blah, blah, blah. Tell me how that's different from when you ask a woman why she did this. Well, first of all, if you would have did A, B, and C, I would have never did 1, 2, and 3. It's never, why did you do that? You know what? I made a mistake. I'll make sure I don't do that again. Never heard that in the history of womanhood. Never. I wouldn't have done that if you wouldn't have left me here. Well, why did you let me do that? What? And you know what? As men, we love y'all for it. But don't act like you're masculine at the same time wanting us to acknowledge your femininity, wanting us to acknowledge that you're a woman and you need to be taken care of and you need to be cherished and you don't want to be responsible for everything. You don't want to be blamed for everything. Yes, I want to hold you like a little girl in my arms, protect you, love you, and want to make sure you have no responsibilities besides being a goddamn woman and a goddamn mother. But if you tell me I can't do that, and then I let you do everything that you claim is your liberation, and then you seek the results that come out in a negative aspect, and then you want to tell me I should have been there to stop it, the fuck are you talking about? Who are you following? It's the last point I want to make. When I hear black feminists, whatever the hell they want to call themselves, women talking about things, I never hear them quoting or imitating the black women from the civil rights eras. I never hear them quoting or imitating the black queens from our ancient civilizations. Everything the black feminist regurgitates is the European narratives given to them by white women and white men. And you know, the funny thing about it is, when I do bring up the black woman's great grandmothers, the black women's female activists from a time where we were trying to achieve balance and separation from white society, I get crickets. Nobody says anything. Because you know why? They don't want to say that's wrong, because technically it's their own women and their own ancestors. But then they don't want to say that's right, because that will contradict the movement that they're following. So I get nothing. Who are you imitating today? Are you imitating the queens from our empires in Sungai, our kingdoms in Egypt? Even all of y'all that are Moabitesses, are you imitating the women from the Yucatan dynasties, from the Olmec civilizations? And I'll be going into that on my Instagram page later, showing all because the white scholars, they like to call it gender pluralism, because they discovered that in all these ancient Mesoamerican societies, gender was complementary. Nobody was fighting to do the other person's job. Everything was parallel. Not equal, parallel. We work beside each other, but doing jobs that are associated with our design. And I will show that soon on my Instagram page, Mind Ascension and Alchemy. Who are you following? Are you following the woman that made lunch programs for their children during the Black Panther movement? Are you following their mindset? Are you following the women after the emancipation of slavery who brought together homes and communities like Rosewood and the Black Wall Streets all over America? Are you following their mindset? Making homes for their men and their children, organizing community ceremonies and community things to bring unity within that entire village, that entire community that eventually grew into a city? Are you following the strategies, the mannerisms, the behavior of our ancient queens? You want to focus so much on the warriors, but I hope you understand that your warrior queens did not embrace homosexuality in their sons, brothers, or husbands. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Hope you understand that. Your warrior queens did not embrace their soldiers laying with their soldiers. Oh, but, you know, you're going to ignore that one. You know, my favorite thing about the conscious humanoid, a.k.a. the wokeite of the wokest of wokeite black people, is they want to pick and choose what they want to acknowledge from their own culture. They want to pick and choose what they want to acknowledge from their traditions. So if I tell you, why are you walking around with your breasts and your titties out talking about men are sexually objectifying you, you want to justify that by saying in Africa they walk around with their titties out. But guess what they also do in Africa? They also circumcise the clitoris. Guess what else they do in Africa? They also practice polygyny. Oh, but no, we're not doing that. We're just going to do the thing that I like to do, and we're going to justify it by talking about it in African culture. So African women walked around naked and nobody objectified them. Yeah, you're right. Are we going to talk about the other things African women did in those same societies and those same exact tribes and those same exact cultures? Or are we just going to ignore that complete gigantic half and just focus on the things that you want to do today? I'm going to end this video. But we must understand that our conditioning creates our perception. Our perception dictates our reality. So when you adopt something from another person's region, society, and culture that has absolutely nothing to do with you, anytime you're ready to join a movement, ask yourself, what is the origin? What is the source of this movement? What is the cause of this movement? And is it related to my origin, to my source, to my culture? If there's no relation, why the fuck are you joining it? Because you're a follower? Because everybody around you's talking about it? Because everybody around you is involved in it? So now you feel you have to be a part of it? Because it's a trend? And you don't want to feel left out? Why are you joining something or imitating something that has nothing to do with your origin? That has nothing to do with the source of who and what you are? Why are you not looking for the correlations from modern to ancient times of what you join? Ask yourself, where is the black man's suppression of the black woman? Show me it. Anywhere that it's pre-colonized. Don't show me an Islamic colonized Africa. Don't show me a Christianity colonized Africa. Show me a pre-colonized Africa that suppressed its women. Any society, to be honest with you, don't need to. I can't stand how we stay stuck in this box of Africa, because you're by far more than African. You're beyond this goddamn earth. But we're not going to talk about that right now. But since y'all want to relate things in order to justify them, because you justify your behavior with African things, but then you talk about liberation and oppression based on European westernized society. And you act like they're one and the same. And they're not. Remember, Islam was the first colonizers of Africa. Islam created the Arab slave trade in Africa prior to the European. But what we also don't understand is that Arabs adopted European tendencies, especially from the Greek and the Roman. So they learned a slave society from another slave society, adopted and then mastered that society and colonized another. So you were under Islamic rule before you were under Christian rule. So for those of you that want to go back and talk about some form of oppression in Africa that's literally under an Islamic flag, which never existed in ancient society, or that want to go back, which is under a Christian flag that never existed in ancient society. Because let me tell you something. Ancient is not 800 AD, 1000 AD, 1100 AD, 1500, 1600. That's not ancient. Ancient is when you see BC, before BCE. You see BC before Christian, or you see BC before Common Era. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, ancient ain't until you hit 1000 BC. But I'm going to be nice and just say BC. Because when you see that acronym, when you see those initials BC, what they're really telling you is the world wasn't colonized by white people yet. That's what they're really saying. Before Common Era, BCE, before Common Era, or BC, before Christ. Because Christ and Common Era, Christian era, Catholic era, is European colonization of the world. And they know this. And that's why they make sure they specify those time frames when they talk about history. Oh, this was 500 BCE. Oh, this was 600 AD. What do you think those terms mean? After colonization, before colonization. So show me your female and woman's oppression before colonization anywhere on the planet outside of Greece and Rome. Who are you following? Who are you imitating? You want to play basketball. You want to play football. You want to be a construction worker. Show me with your liberation new things that you're doing that men didn't do already. Show me with your independence the things that you create and the things that you use that men didn't already invent for you to have. I'm independent. I'm my own woman. I drive my own car. Who created the car? I'm independent. I'm my own woman. I got my own house. Who built your fucking house? I'm independent. I'm my own woman. I got $1,000 phone. Who made the goddamn phone? I'm independent. I'm my own woman. I got a Gucci bag. I got a Fendi bag. Who the fuck is Gucci and Fendi? Everything that makes you independent was created, manufactured, and invented by a man. And believe it or not, the sex toys that you think liberate you from needing an actual physical, organic black dick was created by niggas too. Fact. The sex toy industry was created by men. I'm gonna wrap this up, family. Female liberation through male imitation. Who are you following, number one? Are you following your black ancestors? Are you following your black queens? Are you following the black women that were part of the liberation movement of black people called the Black Civil Rights Movement? Are you following the women who uplifted and supported the Black Panthers that brought change to communities? Are you following the black queens that led armies of straight heterosexual black men that came back home after war to their black wives? Who are you following? Who are you imitating today? Are you imitating the creativity through femininity with your liberation? Are you imitating the projection of beauty, the symbolisms of the feminine through your liberation? Are you adopting more etiquette, civilized, graceful behavior through your liberation? Or are you adopting savage as fuck behavior through your liberation? What the fuck is savage as fuck? Why as a man who's already masculine, who's already going through hell as a black man in America, why the fuck do I want to come home to a savage? Y'all hear that? You hear the shit that y'all say today? Who was the original savage? Black women? Black queens? Who is the original savage? So who are you following? Who are you imitating today? Think. Stop feeling first and think of the origin of the words you use, the etymology of the words you use, the origin of your behavior and who behaved like that initially. The need to reject everything, the need to cut off everything, the need to fight everything. You was the glue of communities before you became a feminist. You kept homes together. You kept families together. You were the center and the glue of entire kingdoms and empires. In order to combine an empire, I had to marry a black woman. Stupid. Look at your history. In order to combine one kingdom to another kingdom, which creates an empire, I hope y'all understand what these words mean. Empire is the combination of kingdoms. The way you combine a kingdom with a kingdom is you must marry a black woman. When invaders came into our civilizations, immediately they married black women. So it's this unity of marriage that expanded our global empires. And now you're rejecting the need of a man? Now you're rejecting a husband? Now you're rejecting the masculine design of order? The masculine design of analyzation, the masculine design of logic, the masculine design of protection, the masculine design of force, the masculine design of motivation. Now that's abuse? Now that's toxic? But then you turn around and act like a man? And that's not toxic? So masculinity is toxic, but being a masculine female is liberation? Mind Ascension, I love y'all. And I love y'all because y'all are me. I don't love y'all because I'm saying that corny ass shit. I love y'all because I know that anybody that possesses that U melanin dominance and that 9 to 7 to 9 ether follicle, I know you are me because you right up in my goddamn veins. So I have to love you because if I don't love you, then I don't love myself. I need to wake up to my reflection. I need to wake up to my polarity in order to love what I am and who I am inside. So that's why I love you. I don't love you because I'm saying that corny cliche shit. Mind Ascension. For consultations and divinations, the number is 646-575-8305. Once again, for consultation and divinations, the number is 646-575-8305. Women, utilize your intelligence. Intelligence has no gender. Intelligence is part of the God mind, the cosmic consciousness. Anything you join, anything you follow, the first thing you need to do is find the origin. The first thing you need to do is figure out how it relates to those who look like you. Then once you go from the source, recognize the surface. How does this apply to my surface? When was the last time a black man controlled anything in my life? When was the last time a black man controlled anything in my grandmother's life? When was the last time a black man controlled anything in my great-great-grandmother's life? So who exactly am I being liberated from? Mind Ascension, I love y'all. I'm out.